Assalamu alaikum and welcome to day 20 of our How to Read Quran series, a program on the Quranology Institute's YouTube channel. Today I will be speaking about using the beginnings or the openings of Quranic chapters in order to ground yourself in the correct meaning. Now, what does this mean exactly? Well, all it means is, after you read verse 0, and I would advise you to look at my previous video, day 19, where I speak about verse 0 or the Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. After you read this, and you should be reading this because it zeroes you in on the target, you will be looking at the beginnings of chapters. I mean, that's quite obvious, right? You read the chapter from beginning to end. But what you need to do is to use these beginnings of the chapters to propel yourself forward into the chapter. So let's say, if you start out with the opening chapter, Fatiha, there are 6 verses. What's the first verse? Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. Praise be to Allah, Lord of the worlds. How does this affect the next verse? Well, that state of praise is also for Allah in His capacity as Ar-Rahman Ar-Rahim. That's chapter 1 verse 2. Also for Maliki Yawmiddin, chapter 1 verse 3. And in that state of praise, you carry it into that state of ibadah, because after you acknowledge that Allah is the Malik of Yawmiddin, you say, Iyaka na'budu. To you alone we serve. So you see, that state of praise is actually carried all the way through. But that's only for small chapters. What about big chapters? Well, it works in the same way with big chapters. Let's take Baqarah, for example, chapter 2. Now, this is the largest chapter in Quran. 286 verses. I believe that the first 20 verses, so 20 over 280 is 1/14 of Baqarah, is the linchpin. You need to focus on these 20 verses. And when you do, when you carry this awareness into the next passage, what happens is you will have a better grounding for that passage. Now let's analyze this first 20 verses. Now in verse 1, chapter 2 verse 1, Alif Lam Mim, questioning, focusing and acting. This one verse is enough to take you all the way through. I think this is one of the most powerful verses there is in that understanding, and then it carries on to it says, Dhalika al-Kitab, that is the system in which there is no doubt, La Rayba Fih. So when you carry out this system of experimentation, of questioning, focusing and enacting, you will be one of those who are aware, and then you will carry out the principles. You will build proper relationships. You will spend out of what is bountified. You will believe in what has been descended to you, personally to you. And then from verse 6, it tells you about the opposite of such people. People who do not question, people who do not focus, people who do not experiment. What do? They close their hearts. And Allah says, ختم الله على قلوبهم وعلى سمعهم وعلى أبصارهم غشاوة. Allah has set a seal on their hearts and their hearings, and on their sight is a veil. Why? They don't question. You see how it relates back to verse 1? It goes back so that we can explicate that principle. And it continues for such people. Because they are not aware of their lack of awareness, they create mischief on the earth. And then from verse 17 to verse 20 of that passage, it tells you metaphors of people who are basically, they can't hear, they can't see, how they go through life, etc. And if you don't link it back to the beginning of the chapter, what happens is you don't know why God is talking about that. Why did that come up suddenly? But if you look at the beginning of the chapter, you will find that it is a direct track all the way to verse 20. It's actually very, very powerful in that regard. So that is the preamble, the verses 1 to 20. If we then establish an awareness of that preamble, and we take it to the first passage, O mankind, serve your Lord, etc., etc., we will find that it actually provides a different angle to this passage. And then when we come to the Israel, the nation walking in the path of God, they also fall because of this, because they don't question, they don't enact, they don't focus on stuff. You see, so the principle carries on. What you need to do is to take that preamble and link it to every single component of that chapter. There are 18 different components. And in doing so, you will see how the chapter is actually bringing things in front of you so that you can understand, oh, okay, here is how the principle applies. And by the time you get to the end of the chapter, where I'm talking about verses 284 to 286, very famous verses, these. By the time you get to that part and you compare that preamble to this part, because that part is focused on the soul. What is the soul about? The soul is about experiencing things. So if the soul is able to question, able to focus on certain things, able to act upon what is being told, then the soul will experience what is intended for it by God. And in doing so, it will create that state of Adam, which is also mentioned on early in the chapter, which is the state of the garden on earth. So you see that for just that one chapter, just focus on the preamble, think about it, jot it down if you must, and consider it when you are reading the rest of the the chapter. Try that, and this principle equally applies for other chapters as well. And you will find that Quran will become far more grounded for you than if you just read it. You take one verse here, one verse there. Some people even take half verses. I'm sorry, that's not what the Quran is for. So try to use a more organic reading in order to achieve the targeted meaning. Many thanks for viewing this video. Inshallah, I will see you again for day 21.